Folks, hello. Welcome to Tavern Chat. I'm your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. So, there's actually an interesting conversation going on Facebook. We, it's been a pretty. I never really cared about monks so much in my AD&D 1E campaigns. They always seemed out of place. But there was a conversation going on which asked, can monks use protection scrolls? Because there appears to be uh, a contradiction between the player's handbook and the DMG. And it's a very active thread. So I'm just going to give you the basics, and then we're going to backtrack for a moment. So, from the DMG, page 127, according to my drive through reprint, I quoted 128 on the Facebook page, so I had trouble finding it initially. But it says only the indicated class character can use the scroll except thieves. That's for regular spell scrolls. Protection scrolls can be read by any class or race of character, even without a magic spell. Interesting. However, when it comes to monks and magic items from the player's handbook, it says magic items usable by monks include all magical varieties of weapons listed, unless prescribed, rings, and those miscellaneous magic items which are usable by thieves. No other magic items of any sort may be employed by monks. Additionally, a monk may possess no more than two magic weapons and three other magic items at any time. All right. So, what would that mean? Seems to be contradicting, right? Look, never did to me. Never played enough monks. But what this is saying is there are categories in a treasure table that are for miscellaneous magic. Now, when the player's handbook was published, there were no such tables. Yeah, I know. There were in OD&D, but AD&D was, in theory, a different game. So we don't really know what Gary was doing behind the scenes. The player's handbook came out first. So was it miscellaneous magic? Because it's not naming this as a table, right? It's saying miscellaneous magic items as just a title. And this is where I'm talking about the argument goes. People, and all the arguments are, for the most part, valid arguments. My argument, and I'll be honest with you, I got more involved in this conversation than I thought I would. My argument was the Dungeon Master's Guide came after the Player's Handbook, which means that, in theory, what's in the DMGs to supersede anything that's in the Player's Handbook if there's a conflict. It was written later. Others are saying specific overrules general. So saying any class in general, but specifically says miscellaneous, and here, now, I told you my argument, but I would even go a little bit further, having really looked at this now, the original, and say miscellaneous magic items is not a category here. It's a general description. It isn't miscellaneous magic items tables 1 through Roman numeral 14 or what the heck it was broken up as. So, again, my argument would be monks can use scrolls, protection scrolls. Otherwise, they can't use scrolls, can't use potions. Never saw those restrictions put into place. Couldn't carry many anyway. But rulings, not rules. This goes back to AD&D. These are the things that we still, to this day, 45 years later, are arguing about. And I find that many old school gamers enjoy the argument as much as they enjoy getting an actual ruling, because you're not going to get a ruling on this. Well, if you think specific supersedes general, you're only going to come to one conclusion. If you believe that latter publications supersede prior publications, you're only going to come to one conclusion. If you take this and say miscellaneous magic items is not a category, but just a general description, and other miscellaneous magic items as a catch-all, well, then you probably say it's not a definite. So why do we enjoy this? Because gaming is as much a mental exercise as it is a social group experience. And arguing this stuff out is healthy. Arguing this stuff out, as long as it doesn't get, as long as there's no name calling, and we do see that happen, right? People get very defensive, like, I'm right, you're wrong. This isn't the truth, right? This isn't about what truly happened. We don't know what Gary intended. We don't know. Maybe he realized in the DMG that, maybe I should define that any class can use protection scroll. Maybe he did that and didn't realize that he'd already proscribed monks from using such. We don't know. We can't read his mind. No longer with us. So we argue this stuff out. Like I said, I think that's healthy. And I think anyone who tries to make a rule set that has every possibility figured out is probably going to be much too long a rule set for any of us old timers to want to play. But it's going to lack something. It's going to lack that interaction. I don't care if I'm wrong in the group discussion and I get outvoted, or general consensus is, oh no, monks can't use anything except for weapons, rings, and miscellaneous magic items which are usable by thieves. And that specifically. That certainly could be the case. But that's why it's fun, right? But it's also why there are certain things you have to make clear when you are running an old school campaign, because generally speaking, your rules are going to have holes. You've got to be willing and ready to tell your players at the beginning of the campaign, especially maybe if it's a hole like this. Hey, this is the ruling that I made. I'm ruling that monks can't use potions. Monks can't use scrolls, protection scrolls. All right. Don't spring it on your players, though, halfway into the campaign and go, oh, you didn't realize that you couldn't use it? Because that's not the character's going to know at the start of their career, right? They'll know those restrictions. The OSR is often very open-ended. There can be more than one right answer, but generally speaking, there is only one right answer for each individual campaign. Where you fall on that spectrum as a GM is perfectly fine. Okay? That's what sometimes folks from outside the OSR, they get very frustrated because I don't know what to do with X, or I don't know what to do with Y. The rules don't tell me specifically in this rule set how to break down doors or how to break open a lock, as if the picking attempt failed. Make up a ruling on the spot how to do it. What's important in the OSR is consistency. If you make a ruling, if you decide, well, if you want to bust open a door, you need a crowbar and you got to make the X roll, write it down in your crib sheet or on your app or whatever you're using, but be consistent with that ruling. Because it's only going to be the only truly bad ruling is the inconsistent one. Is, what did I do last time we had this? Oh, fuck, I don't know. Because one of your players is going to remember. Maybe they'll tell you, and you make a different rule and go, last time you said, and you're like, oh, fuck. So that's the only thing, in my personal opinion, that is the danger of the rulings, not rules. You got to be consistent when you make a ruling. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change it. Maybe you make a bad ruling and then you go on, you discuss it with the group. And go, all right, going forward, it's going to be this way, not the way we played it out last time. And you can also do I'm going to do a mulligan. Let's redo that shot. I don't like the way I was rushed. I wasn't thinking properly. You're going to have these conflicts. OSR rules are generally they're open to interpretation. That's what the O in OSR should probably stand for. Open to interpretation. I don't know of any two tables that have run AD&D 1E exactly the same. Certainly, I'm in Joe the Lawyer's 2E campaign, and it's like, I don't know, 2,000 pages of house rules. I've lost track. But it's 2E. You'll recognize it as the rule set. But he house ruled it, right? Some of these house rules are because, oh, well, this wasn't addressed properly. Or Joe thought he had better rules. So expect that also. We're having an influx of new gamers into the OSR. There's the argument that like Shadow Dark isn't OSR. Shadow Dark is OSR. It might not be built off the same pure chassis as Osric and Labyrinth Lord and Old School Essentials might be. But the resulting game is very much OSR. It's very much open, wiggly, and very much rulings, not rules. So I thought we'd touch on that. And by the way, as a side note, tomorrow night, Wednesday, the 10th of May, 2023, 8 p.m. Eastern, Kelsey. Yep. The very person behind Shadow Dark. She will be joining us. Myself and Bad Mike, I'm excited. I mean, yes, her Kickstarter did like 1.3, almost 1.4 million dollars, but her game is awesome. I've played in it. I had a blast. I'd like to run it. I'd have a blast. So, tomorrow night, 8 p.m., this very channel, join us. I expect to see a lot of you there. Other than that, folks, as always, be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. 8 p.m. tomorrow. Be there, be square. God, I'm showing my age. All right. Good night, folks.